Lucy, what am I to do with the SEC narrative, especially when 25% of the ACC teams made the Final Four on the men's side?
Oh, gosh.
There was someone at the Duke-Alabama game that was screaming behind us the whole time of like, you mighty SEC, you don't know what you faced. Obviously, the SEC they were the best team or conference in college basketball this year, and the ACC is ass. Like, it's just objective. And they're just kind of entirely banking on Duke being a good program. I love sort of the theory of the ACC combining with the Big East. I don't know how valid that is, but I think that's something interesting to look at in the future. But
that's something that's been happening.
Yeah.
There have been real conversations there. It does make sense for basketball, no doubt.
The Big
they
East,
need it. Just they're so bad.
The Big East, I know the NIL, there are like new rules coming to NIL with revenue share coming up pretty soon. There's an article I read recently that talked about how the future of basketball in college could be heavily tilted towards the Big East because they do not have football teams. And so when the revenue share situation comes, each school is going to have about $20 million, right?
20, yep.
To split amongst all of their sports. And so in football, it's normally going to be like 80%, 75 to 80% towards football because it's the revenue generating sport in most major schools. And then the rest will be divvied up amongst basketball and the rest of the sports. But the Big East teams, they don't have major football programs. So they're projected to be spending $6, $7, $8 million on their roster per Big East team against the rest of college basketball that will be spending $4 or $5 or maybe $6 million. So we could be looking at a future where the Big East is like the basketball conference, and then the rest of these teams are essentially relegated to being like trying to be spoilers or Cinderellas.
No, I think that's absolutely fair, and I see why the ACC is kind of trying to capitalize on that right now because the ACC has been the premier basketball conference. That is what the ACC is known as, and that has not been the case the last few years. The SEC has completely taken over. The Big 12 has taken over. The ACC just isn't competing the same. Obviously, you can kind of play that into the fact that Roy Williams isn't there anymore, and I know Duke's been very good this year, but there was, concerns about Coach K being gone. But when you look at the ACC right now and just where they stand, where they've just did their entire revenue model based off of what Clemson and Florida State wanted with football, just because they're in a weird spot where no one seems to be particularly happy. It seems like a good idea to attach another way for teams to make more money, for the ACC to be more competitive, because right now they're just falling behind, and they're grateful that Cooper Flagg decided to go to Duke because that's the entire savior of their conference. Had Cooper Flagg not gone to Duke, had they not been a good team, what would have their tournament appearance been? Clemson losing to McNeese State?
Ugh.
Like, that was it. The ACC is not a good conference. But if the ACC decides to join the Big East, we'll have some great basketball games.